Yeah. Okay, so this is a presentation about the EHCP process, and I'm also going to discuss the Elspar with you, which is the new learner's single point of access. Because the EHCP process has slightly changed recently, where we've introduced the Elspar. So I'm going to go over that as well. So
I need to.
Oh,
I need.
is everyone okay? Yep, sorry, I can't see you when I have the slides up. So I'm just going to show you a video about the Elspar. I've put on here that if you go onto the local offer website to get information, the pages about the Elspar and EHCP process are currently under review because of the new Elspar. So that's why I've put that bit on there. But professionals working with children and young people in Surrey can use the Elspar to request support where you have concerns about a child or a young person's learning or development. It doesn't have to only be to request an EHCP needs assessment. It can also be where you might just have general concerns about the child that you're looking after, if you're a parent or carer, and there's a multidisciplinary team working there that includes a social worker, a specialist teacher for inclusive practice, an educational psychologist, a speech and language therapist, an occupational therapist, and a kind of version of me, so a SEND coordinator and a quality manager. And they sit every day and they review all of the information that's coming into the Elspar, and decide what route would be best for the child and what support they think the child needs. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and switch to my video. Bear with me a moment.
Emma?
Yes.
Could I just ask, next time you show the presentation, can you do the slideshow so that it's bigger for us?
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, I'll try and work out how to do that. You might have to advise me. Okay, so I'm just going to share my whole screen for a moment.
Preston.
Can you all see that video?
Yeah, just press the little button.
Okay.
We can't hear her.
Oh, really? This was the problem I had earlier.
Emma, when you press the share screen button,
Yeah.
there's a little toggle at the top where you choose which window you want to share. There's a little option that says include computer sound.
Yes, I thought I'd pressed that this time. Let me try once more.
Because I've had this problem before when I've done the similar things.
It's really difficult, isn't it, when you're trying to press. So let me try again. Okay.
You'll find it in advanced settings. So if you go into advanced settings and then, like the lady said before, share your computer sound, that should work.
I think I might have got it this time. I'm going to start again. Let me know if you can hear it. Are you able to hear it?
It's low. I can hear something.
So we know that our early years settings and our schools know children and their needs best, and they know their families really well. So we want to be able to support schools in meeting the important goals that they have for children. And the Elspar is a really important way of doing that. So we're working in collaboration and partnership to achieve the very best for children. At its heart, our LearnerSpar has a multidisciplinary team that includes colleagues across education, health and care. We have education psychologists, specialist teachers, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, just to name a few. And the impact of that is to get a really holistic, rounded view of a child and their needs, and to be able to really improve the connectivity between services and make sure that we're really meeting those needs in the best way possible.
So one of the really important aspects of the Elspar is how we can support children, families to access the right services at the right time. Part of our vision for the Elspar, one of our driving forces, is the knowledge that when parents do first realise that perhaps their child may have additional needs, or their child is a little more vulnerable than others, they absolutely seek and crave good quality information. We want to be active listeners, and we want to be part of solving the problem. But we also know the problem isn't the child, that the problem is sometimes within the system, and we need to help parents work their way through that.
To have a single point of access, one number, one way into the services for young people and families, I think is going to be enormously helpful and demystifying of what the council does and how huge it is. We're hoping to obviously take that person, be the first point in their journey, and be able to point them in the right direction in a friendly, courteous, welcoming manner. In the Elspar team, we aim to answer calls within 20 seconds, and it makes a lot of difference for a family to be able to get a response very quickly. And what we want to do is obviously be able to, as we say, resolve as many queries, questions at the first point. But if it's a complex inquiry, or one that we feel the triage team and the multidisciplinary team will really be able to help with, then we've got a process of referring that to the triage team, and then subsequently the multidisciplinary team if that's where it needs to go.
Ultimately, through the Elspar, we want to make sure that every child can live, learn and grow up in their local community with their friends and go to their local school or nursery. And we want them to be able to go on and lead really rich and fulfilling lives here in Surrey.
Okay, so I hope that gave you a bit of information about the Elspar and how they're helping to support with information and advice. So if the children or child that you're caring for, if you have some specific concerns or you would like some advice, that is a service that you can make initial contact with. So I'm just going to go back to my slides now, and hopefully this time I'm going to share them in a presenting way. Bear with me a moment. Okay, are you able to see them a bit better this time?
Yes, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the actual EHCP process. So if you want to make a request for an EHCP needs assessment, you would do that through the Elspar, and there's a form that you complete. The Elspar would receive the request, and the MDT meetings, the multidisciplinary team, meet every day, and they have a look at the requests coming in and if there's enough information there. Now, sometimes we need further information. So what we're looking for really with an EHCP needs assessment request is around 2 terms evidence from schools, where we can clearly see that there's been a planned do review cycle. So they've looked at the needs of the child, they've planned interventions, they've carried them out, and then they've also at the end evaluated them to see, are they working, what could we do differently, what else do we need to put in place, what strategies would work. So that's some of the information that we're looking for from schools, and we're also looking for, we ask schools to send in provision maps that also details the needs of the child and what they're actually putting in place, and also something called a send support arrangements document, which has a one-page profile on about the child that has a picture of the child and has information about them, and then also has some of their family history, their story, and information like that. So that's the kind of things that we're looking for when we get a request for an assessment. Now, sometimes that information isn't always available. That could be because a child's recently moved to school, maybe a child moved in from another local authority and you're caring for that child. So there are exceptions where we can see that there's a clear need and we'll decide to assess. The really good thing about the new Elspar, so the Learner's Spar, is that if it's a no to assess, if they feel like actually an EHCP needs assessment isn't required at this time, they do point in the direction of all the services that are able to offer support. At the bottom here, I've just put a bit about what the Children and Families Act says. So obviously that's our legislation that we're governed by. You know, what we're looking for is if a child has or may have special educational needs. And the things I spoke about before are the evidence that we're looking for that. So once we've made that decision, it will either be a yes or no to assess. And if it's a yes to assess, then we ask for the statutory advice. So that's the advice that we need to make a decision whether to issue. So at that point, there's certain statutory advice that we always ask for, and then sometimes there's other advice that we're asked for if there's need. So the type of advice that we always ask for is educational psychology advice, so EP advice, the medical doctor for SEND, so medical advice, and social care advice. And also in terms of if children are looked after, we'd be asking for advice from virtual schools because they're likely to know, you know, a lot about the children and their needs. Once looking at the paperwork, if it's clear that a child has speech and language needs or OT needs, then we'd also be asking for advice from those professionals. Some children have other needs related to kind of physical and sensory needs. So there might be hearing impairment or visual impairment. And in those cases as well, we would go to the physical sensory support team and also ask for statutory advice. So once we've requested statutory advice, the professionals involved have 6 weeks to get that advice back to us. So that's the statutory timescale. Now, just to manage expectations in case any of you do end up going through this process, there are sometimes capacity issues within certain teams. I know sometimes the OT team has capacity issues, and at the moment the medical teams, the NHS, they obviously have some capacity issues for, you know, obvious reasons. So there are times when advice doesn't always come back dead on the 6 weeks, but in that sense you would have a SEND case officer, so a case officer that's been allocated to your case and to the child that you're looking after, and they would be chasing that advice for you. So once we've received all that advice in, it would then all the advice would go to a panel to decide if whether we need to issue the EHC plan, or if actually looking at all the advice, it's felt that needs can be met within what we'd call the core offer. So what schools are able to provide within what they have as part of their core offer to a child. So all of that evidence will go back to a panel. And that panel, I won't bore you with the name of it, it's just one of our internal panels. But sitting on that panel again is myself, the service manager for SEND, an educational psychologist, an occupational therapist, a speech and language therapist, SENCOs and head teachers also sit on the panel, and a social care representative. So it's a panel made up of many professionals that have got a good insight into kind of children and what they need. So they'd look at all the paperwork, and then there'll be a decision whether to issue an EHCP or not. If it's a no to issue, then obviously rights of appeal kick in, and your case officer at the time would call you and explain why it had been a no. You'd receive a decision outcome sheet, and then following that, if you wanted to, you could have a way forward meeting, because it might be that actually at that point you've got some more evidence to present, or maybe you were waiting for school to provide something or a professional to provide something that just wasn't there when it went to panel, and it could be that the decision's overturned. If it's not, then there's obviously an appeals process that you can follow. But if you got to that stage, your case officer would give you all the information. So from week 16 to 20 would be, if it was a yes to issue, would be preparing the EHCP. So your case officer would be writing your EHCP and incorporating all of the evidence from all of the professionals. A draft EHCP will never include a name of a school. So you'd get the draft, and as the corporate parent and the carer, you would have a look at the draft and see if you agree. You have 15 days to do that. And then if you agree with all of the content, you can make one preference for a school place. If you didn't agree, then you would go back to your case officer and explain the bits that you think needed amending. There'd be a discussion around that. And sometimes things are amended, and sometimes it might be explained why it wouldn't be appropriate to put that in that part of the plan. So you've now had your draft and you've had your 15 days to look at it and see if you agree. If you do agree, then finally it would be finalised and a school would be named in section I of the plan. So in terms of being involved in the EHCP needs assessment planning and providing information, I've got another video that I'm going to share with you. Hopefully this time you'll get sound straight away, so just bear with me a moment. I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to sharing the video that I wanted to share.
Health and Social Care Plan and the Person-Centered Connection. What is person-centered planning? Person-centered planning is a term used to describe a process that aims to put parents, children, and young people at the centre of planning and decisions that affect them. When children and young people are meaningfully involved with the help or guidance of parents, this can change their attitude, behaviour, enhance their learning, and ensure that everyone involved are active partners in plans that are all about them. It's a simple philosophy, but in order to make it all happen, it requires the help of professionals trained in this approach, and also for families and friends to think differently too. For an EHCP to be person-centered, it requires everyone involved in the 20-week assessment process to begin by knowing the aspirations, hopes, and dreams of the child or young person. In order for a person-centered EHCP to be created, it requires certain questions to be asked and considered during the assessment process, including identifying areas of strength, skills, and talents alongside needs. It is essential that sufficient detail is identified in order to fully understand and appreciate exactly what it is that's meaningful to the person and what good support looks like to make that happen. It is vital that it reflects what's possible, not just what is available. The first two of these questions are important to: what is valued and what makes life worth living? And important for: what support is required to enable a healthy and safe life and a sense of belonging to the community? This information can also be used to create a one-page profile, which can be included in Section A or simply be kept with the EHCP. A one-page profile is literally a sheet of A4, handwritten or produced on the computer with a photo or picture in 3 parts: what we like and admire, what makes life worth living, and what good support looks like. Another pair of questions that will be used when developing the EHCP include: what's working? This establishes what's going well and probably should therefore continue. And what's not working? What needs to be reviewed and changed? What are outcomes? Outcomes are a way of identifying the steps required to take the child or young person forward in their life towards their aspirations. Although outcomes need to be measurable, it is essential that they are personalised, relevant, and ambitious, otherwise they are not person-centred. The EHCP should ensure that all the strategies, support, and services are clearly specified in the provision sections of the EHCP, F, G, H1 and H2, and are sufficient to achieve the outcomes. Services and support are only part of what people want and need to live the life they would choose for themselves. Knowing what services you need can only come after planning what sort of life you want. How can you find out more or access local services and support? You can find out more about the SEND reforms and the education, health and care planning process by visiting the local offer page on your local authority website. Here you will be able to find impartial information, advice and support, and learn about all the services that are available to you. You will also be able to request that an independent supporter contacts you to help you understand the process clearly and navigate through the education, health and care planning process. Although an independent supporter cannot prepare a plan for you, they can provide a guidance and support role to help you do this. Parents who require additional support are referred to their local information, advice and support service. Further information, including a useful resource on how to write good quality EHC plans, can be found at councilfordisabledchildren.org.uk.
Okay, I'm just going to come back. Okay, so that was the end of the slides that I've prepared. Did anybody have any questions about the EHCP process or would like to know anything extra? I can